Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. A series of blasts has been reported across Afghanistan as the voters headed to the polls for the presidential election. The Taliban had earlier threatened violence against anyone taking part in the election. 5 bombs went off in the eastern city of Jalalabad, killing 1 and wounding several others. Earlier, 15 people were wounded in a blast at a polling station in the southern province of Kandahar. Amid tight security, over 9 million voters are potentially taking part in the democratic process. Afghan Election Commission said it has had no contact with over 900 polling stations across the country. Ashraf Ghani and Abdullah cast their vote and urged people to come out for polls. Meanwhile, Pakistan has opened its western border to facilitate Afghan citizens for voting process. Foreign Office spokesperson Mohammad Faisal said the step was taken on request by the Afghan government. Afghans are casting their ballots in the hope of a better future for their country. The presidential election is being fought between 18 candidates, while competition is considered tough between 3. These include Ashraf Ghani, Abdullah and Gulbuddin Hikmatyar. More in this report.
Afghanistan has 9.6 million registered voters who will cast their ballots in over 5,000 polling stations. Ahead of rumours regarding rigging and violence, the Afghan government has deployed 100,000 security personnel. Let's take a closer look at the 3 most prominent candidates now. Ashraf Ghani became president of Afghanistan on 21st September 2014. He previously served as the finance minister and the chancellor of Kabul University. A great number of Afghans looked to him with aspirations for a better Afghanistan. In office, he was in uneasy alliance with Chief Executive Abdullah, who was also his main rival. Abdullah has been the Chief Executive of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan since September 2014. He was also a member of the Northern Alliance, working to topple Taliban rule, and an advisor to Ahmad Shah Massoud, a prominent leader opposing the Soviets. During the 2009 presidential election, he secured the 2nd highest number of votes after Hamid Karzai. Gulbuddin Hikmatyar is an Afghan politician and former warlord. He formed and heads the Hizb-e-Islami political party. The party is an organization known for fighting the communist government of Afghanistan and their close ally, the Soviet Union. He has twice served as the Prime Minister of Afghanistan from 1993 to 94 and 1996 to 97. For all of the mixed opinions, the security situation in Afghanistan remains the most pressing concern for most of the population.
In Afghanistan, voting for the presidential election is underway across the country amid heavy security with emerging attacks in several cities. Dozens of women have made their way to the polling stations to cast their votes for a new president. More in this report.
Clutching their voter documents, Afghan women wait in long queues for security checks outside voting booths. The twice-delayed vote is taking place after Taliban-US peace talks collapsed earlier this month. The fear of violence and the potential of another disputed election has sapped the enthusiasm of voters. But women are determined to cast their vote and make a difference this time. Fatima Haidari, a voter, says she would cast her vote even if it meant standing in long queues for hours.
I have come here to vote for our next president, and I hope that our future president will pay more attention to women and youth.
In the face of little governmental support and dwindling international aid, Afghan women have not been given any freedom of speech. Now they want the new government to focus on women's rights and development. I have come to cast my vote, and I want our future president to take positive steps for women, peace and security in the country. The election is the 4th presidential vote since the fall of the Taliban to US-led forces. The results of the presidential elections will be declared later in the day.
For more on this, we are joined by Mr. Zubair Babakar Khail, an analyst from Kabul. Thank you for your time. First of all, a series of blasts are reported across Afghanistan after the Taliban had earlier threatened to jeopardize the presidential elections. Do you think this threat could affect the turnout?
Yes, I think technically such threats and insecurity and violence definitely affects the turnout. But still, we have seen that in some areas that we visited this morning, and there were people coming in voting. There were a few blasts in Kabul as well, but still I'm in Kabul and people are voting. So we'll see how much is the turnout later today.
Mr. Zubair, who do you think is the most favorite candidate in today's election?
There were some polls online by some media outlets, some electoral organizations which are independent, and according to those polls, Dr. Ashraf Ghani was leading their campaign, and on the second top is Dr. Abdullah. So we will see what the nation decides today.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Zubair Babakar Khail. For more on this, we are also joined by Mr. Intizar Khadim, a political analyst based in Kabul. Thank you for your time, Mr. Khadim. First of all, the Taliban threats of violence were meant to spread fear in Afghan public, but it seems the Afghan government security measures are satisfactory. How's the voting so far in Kabul and other parts of the country?
Well, thank you. Let me thank the Afghan security forces for solidifying the security control over the polling stations. There has been a possibility that Taliban will launch a symmetric method of security attacks. They do their part, but still, so far, there has not been a major incident. Again, what I'm thinking here, and I'm reflecting the public view about the election. Some people are concerned that it will be the reputation of 2014 election where the rights of the public has been disfranchised. The election has been rigged in, and finally John Kerry is swept to Afghanistan and carve up power between the two gentlemen who are the front runners right now in the election. I hope this time that we have a better result, and I hope that this time the election should not be for the sake of election. It should be for the sake of democracy, which we expect after 18 years. So I think we have to wait until the end of today. That's what has been the result of all day long the voting by the Afghan people. We cannot say who is leading runner, who is the leading candidate. There could be a possibility of flip-flop situation. Let's wait until the evening, and you will see the exact result from the voting.
Okay, what is the participation of women in the national voting this time around?
I think one of the problems for women who have been a cause to stop them to vote in majority has been their picture while they have been biometric and when they were supposed to vote. Some of the ladies and women in the villages in the outskirts of Afghanistan, they are not willing or they are not allowed to be pictured while they are voting. So that has also been a concern in Afghanistan, and I'm sure that it will affect the number and rate of women participation. But we hope that along with that, there could be some daring women who will get out and vote and choose their future. I hope, again, that's not the case. The assumption which we have in mind should be proved wrong.
Mr. Intizar, you already mentioned that Afghanistanis expect this time around that they must be different from that of 2014 elections. What do you think the outcome of this election might be? And do you think what are those areas which are similar, or what are those areas which are different of this election from that of 2014 elections?
Well, personally, me, if you ask my opinion, I was really lobbying for peace to happen first in the election, but that didn't happen. Finally, a butt call from Donald Trump stopped and called the peace deal the Taliban unless we would have had the intra-Afghan dialogues start in Narvain 25th September. Sadly, that has not have been happened. Now, election has been the only option on table. Three factors can affect the turnout of the public. One is the social factors, where people may have a mistrust over their over the system, that if they vote, still that could be gained in they may not be given the actual rights of selecting the right candidate. Second could be the technical and logistical problem by the Afghanistan Election Commission. I hope that, as they promised, they would have been able to deliver the services so people could have vote. And
Yes.
third is the security situation. So I think these three factors.
So there are a number of factors, including the social factor and the technical factor and the security factor related to the Afghan presidential election, which should be considered before considering the outcome of this election. Mr. Intizar Khadim, thank you for your time joining us from Kabul, giving us the analysis regarding the Afghan presidential election, which is underway all across the country. Moving on to Indian-occupied Kashmir, in another act of state terrorism, Indian forces have killed 3 more youth in Ganderbal district of the occupied valley. Kashmir media reported Indian troops martyred youth during a cordon and search operation in Naranag area of the district. At the United Nations General Assembly, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says the international community should ensure that Kashmiris get their right to self-determination. Khan said the Kashmir issue is a test case for the United Nations on this report.
Al señor primer ministro de la República Islámica de Pakistán.
Khan minced no words at the United Nations General Assembly and called out the Indian government for oppression in Kashmir. He said India must lift the inhumane curfew and release all political leaders.
This is a test for the United Nations. You are the one who guaranteed the people of Kashmir the right of self-determination. India must lift this inhuman curfew, which has lasted for 55 days.
He went on to say that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a follower of an extremist Hindu ideology, which believes in ethnic cleansing of Muslims. He added that Indian forces have killed over 100,000 Kashmiris and raped 11,000 women over the last 30 years.
What is going to happen when the curfew is lifted will be a bloodbath. The people will come out. There are 900,000 troops there. They haven't come to, as Narendra Modi says, he's done this for prosperity of Kashmir. This is supposed to be for the development. These 900,000 troops, what are they going to do when they come out? There'll be a bloodbath.
The Prime Minister also spoke about Islamophobia in the world and said it has grown at an alarming pace since the 9/11.
In European countries, it is marginalizing Muslim communities. And we all know that marginalization leads to radicalization.
On climate change, the Prime Minister called for combined efforts to tackle the problem.
World leaders some of the leaders who can do a lot, do not realize the urgency of the situation. Richer countries must be pushed. Countries that are mainly responsible for greenhouse gas emissions.
Khan also met United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres and informed him about the situation in occupied Kashmir.
Meanwhile, world leaders, newspapers and social media have lauded Pakistani's Prime Minister Imran Khan's speech at the UN General Assembly on Kashmir issue. The Prime Minister's speech was the top Twitter trend globally. Britain's opposition leader and Labour Party head Jeremy Corbyn said he spoke to Khan over phone and listened his concerns over Kashmir crisis. He said the UN has a vital role to play in ensuring dialogue between India and Pakistan. Another prominent UK politician, George Galloway, called Khan's speech a first-class innings. Lauding Khan, former Chief Minister of occupied Kashmir, Mehbooba Mufti, said Pakistan warned the world about RSS fascism. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says he fears a massacre in Indian-occupied Kashmir once the curfew is lifted. He said enormity of the situation can be gauged from the presence of 900,000 troops in the valley. In an interview with CNN, the Prime Minister ruled out a meeting with his Indian counterpart after what Modi did in occupied Kashmir. He said besieging the Kashmiris for over 50 days is a testimony of the mindset in India that believes in hate. Replying a question, Imran Khan says a US President Donald Trump is in the best place to mediate on Kashmir. Malaysia and China have raised concerns over Kashmir conflict at the UN General Assembly. Addressing the 74th session, Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad said despite UN resolutions, Kashmir has been invaded and occupied. PM Mohamad said India should work with Pakistan to resolve the issue, and ignoring UN will lead to other forms of disregard. Meanwhile, Chinese Foreign Minister called for peaceful resolution of the issue under UN Security Council resolutions. Wong said Beijing opposes any unilateral actions that complicate the situation and change of status quo. He said as a neighbor, China hopes to see stability restored to the relationship between Pakistan and India. Following diplomatic pressure and the world's condemnation, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi fails to mention the Kashmir issue at the United Nations General Assembly. During his address, a large number of people protested outside the UN headquarters against India's annexation of occupied Kashmir. They chanted anti-India slogans and called for an end to human rights violations in the occupied valley. Members of Pakistani, Kashmiri and Sikh communities participated in the demonstration. Occupied Kashmir has been under India's curfew and communication blockade for 55 days. 46,000 Kashmiris have lost jobs in different sectors, ranging from information technology to tourism, since India illegally annexed the valley on August 5th. The complete internet shutdown has put livelihood of at least 3,000 IT experts at risk. According to official data, tourism sector hit hardest as 40,000 employees have been laid off after India's illegal move. Kashmir Chamber of Commerce and Industry said 80% of 1,100 hotels are closed for the last 2 months. KCCI President Sheikh Ashik Ahmed said around 5,000 tourist cab drivers are suffering over downfall in tourism. Meanwhile, thousands of school teachers also fear losing jobs over clampdown. New Delhi's curfew and communications blackout in the valley has entered 55th day. Pakistan's President Arif Alvi has hailed China's development in its economic flourish, a fight against poverty and foreign policy. President Alvi said Pakistan and China share the same view on global issues. He said both countries believe in the principle of non-interference in other countries' internal affairs. In an interview, he said after 7 decades of development, China has become one of the major trading hubs. Talking about the China-Pakistan economic corridor, the president said the project's primary focus was to generate electricity. Alvi said China goes towards development with no political strings attached.
China came out of its own poverty and became a very good, advanced, developing nation in almost everything, whether it is space exploration, or whether it is artificial intelligence, or software technology, or digitization of the economy. So I think Pakistan can learn from China.
In the U.S., House Democrats have ordered Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to turn over documents connected to President Trump's dealings with Ukraine. In a letter, the heads of 3 House committees subpoenaed Pompeo to produce the documents within a week. They also ordered Pompeo to schedule testimony for witness to the alleged abuse of power by the U.S. leader. Trump is being scrutinized for allegedly pressuring Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky to investigate Democratic rival Joe Biden and his son. Meanwhile, the U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine, Kurt Walker, has resigned from his post. The resignation came after Walker was named in a whistleblower complaint about the phone call between Trump and Zelensky. Meanwhile, U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is accusing Attorney General William Barr of going rogue in a whistleblower report against President Donald Trump. Pelosi says the administration tried to cover up a complaint that Trump put pressure on Ukraine to investigate his political rival Joe Biden. She also criticized acting National Intelligence Director Joseph Maguire for notifying the White House and Justice Department of the complaint. She said Maguire broke the law by not going to Congress first. Democrats have launched an impeachment inquiry against the president. A U.S. airstrike has killed 17 suspected ISIS militants in southwestern Libya. The U.S. African Command said it carried out the raid in coordination with the Libyan government. In a statement, the U.S. said it will continue to support diplomatic efforts to stabilize the political situation in Libya. It said ISIS will not be allowed to benefit from the conflict in Libya. ISIS militants lost their Libyan stronghold in the central town of Sirte in December 2016. Since then, the group has retreated to the country's vast desert to regroup. A Palestinian has been killed by Israeli soldiers during protests along the Gaza border. Gaza's health ministry says another 52 Palestinians were shot and wounded during renewed demonstrations. The ministry says Israeli forces shot 20-year-old Sahar Uthman in the chest near Rafah in southern Gaza. Over 200 Palestinians have been killed by occupation forces in Gaza since the protests began in March 2018. Israel and Hamas have fought 3 wars in and around Gaza since 2008. Turkey says it is not satisfied with the progress in talks with the United States to establish a safe zone in northern Syria. Speaking to reporters in New York, Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu said Ankara will act unilaterally if the talks have no result. Ankara and Washington agreed last month to establish a safe zone clear of the Syrian Kurdish fighters. Turkey has accused Washington of stalling the implementation of the agreement. Çavuşoğlu also said Washington is considering whether to allow Turkey back into the F-35 fighter jet program. Previously, Washington expelled Ankara from the program over its purchase of Russian missile defense systems. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. Further updates, stay tuned to Indus News.